You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Filmmaking Conversations with Damian Swaby. Listen to conversations with award-winning filmmakers, directors from the golden age of television, and creatives from the indie film community who continue to inspire the next generation of filmmakers. And now, over to your host, Damian Swaby.
Today on Filmmaking Conversations, I speak to Carole Kirschner, a Hollywood business coach, public speaker, and writer. She also runs two prominent programs for writers, one at CBS and the other at the WGA. She has been able to create the CBS Diversity Institute Writers Mentoring Program, which she has now run for 17 years. She is immensely proud of their work in the CBS program, helping launch the careers of over 140 television writers. When the CBS program was up and running, the Writers Guild contacted her. They had recently created a program for established writers who were preparing to take on their first assignments as showrunners. This project, the WGA Showrunner Training Program, was sorely needed in Hollywood, and she was so fortunate to be hired to help Jeff Melvon develop the program's curriculum. She's now been running the program for 16 years, and she has been honored to work with and instruct some of Hollywood's most brilliant writers. And now, for my conversation with Carole Kirschner. Hi, Carole. How are you today?
I am awesome today. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm not quite awesome. I'm doing well. I'm doing okay, I think. But I'm not doing
It's a good day.
Awesome. But it's a good day. And I bet you're always doing awesome. I can get that radiance from you.
I would know today is awesome. Yesterday, not so much, but today is good.
Any big dramas that happened yesterday?
What big dramas happened yesterday that made it not so great? Well, just in terms of the television space, Disney, Discovery, Warner Brothers, HBO, all condensed into Max, the new Max.
Okay.
And, it's frustrating because there's less work for scripted TV writers.
Yeah.
But so that's just one thing. But a good news is that one of my Paramount program mentees just got staffed on a new show. So that was like, yay.
Excellent.
So it's good.
Are you allowed to tell us what show?
Sure. Watson. It's a pilot, really. It's a mini room, which is now replacing pilots, frustratingly so. So, yeah.
A mini room. For those of us who don't understand that, admittedly,
yes.
like me, what is a mini room?
Oh, no. Happy to talk about that. It's the scourge of television writers. And what it is it used to be in the broadcast model. So now there's broadcast, cable, and streamers. In the broadcast model, which was the broadcast model for 100 years, and I'm making that number up. Maybe it was 70. I don't remember. No, it was 80, 90, 100 years. Anyways, so what would happen is somebody would go in and they would pitch an idea for a show. And if they liked the idea, they would order a script. And if the network liked the script, they'd order a pilot, which was almost like a proof of concept in filmmaking terms. It was the episode 1 of the show. And if they liked that, then they would order 13 or 22 episodes of a show. These days, because everybody is risk averse, instead of spending the money on a pilot, which could be a lot, like the pilot for Game of Thrones was north of $10 million, and that was many years ago, is they open what's called a mini room. So there are fewer writers in it, and those writers have to write 2, 3, maybe 4 episodes before they decide whether or not they're going to order the series. And so it's instead of doing a pilot, which is a shame because when you do a pilot, you can see what the actor's chemistry is. Chemistry is, not are. And there's just a lot of things you can tell from actually shooting something, as filmmakers know, than just having it on the page. So that's what's happening. The Writers Guild of America is really, they're negotiating right now with the companies, the networks, studios, streamers, to try and change that. How successful they'll be, I'm not sure, but at least we're putting a flag in the sand, in the ground.
Excellent. I like the sound of that. I love pilots. I've always, when I've been able to grab one on video, I'm showing my age, back in the day, because in the UK we didn't always get the pilots, we just got the show. And my favorite one that I managed to put was a show called Quantum Leap. I don't know if you...
Yes, of course.
Yeah, that was a cool
It was
pilot. Great. And I thought, wow, so they made that, and that gave an idea, or maybe a green light, if I'm using the right words, for the show to go ahead.
Yes, it was proof of concept.
Yeah,
you know, it was, yes, that this is good. This is a show we want. And then you said you didn't see the pilot, but in most cases, when it finally airs, the pilot is episode 1. So had you watched the series, or perhaps you had, what you saw in that pilot was probably episode 1, but sometimes they would do a pilot and then reshoot it for episode 1.
Oh, I see. So if we was to think about another show called, my mind's gone blank. No, it's not. My So-Called Life. I don't know. If that only lasted 1 season, but am I right by saying the pilot of that would have been part of the season then?
It would be the first episode.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Learning so much already. But you've had a vast, varied, spectacular career. And you're doing so many. Spectacular.
That's me, spectacular.
Awesome and spectacular.
Awesome and spectacular. I've been really fortunate, and I've gotten to do some really fun and cool stuff. So that's what I think. I'm lucky.
Lucky, but you know, they say you make your own luck depending on the work you do, I guess.
That's true.
You know,
that's true.
A lot of people say. So how does a stand-up comedian go on to have the position you have now? Tell us about how you got up into stand-up.
Sure. Well, in terms of how I got to stand up, I was always funny. Humor had high value in our family. Like, if you could make my parents laugh, it was like home run. So my brothers and I, we developed a good sense of humor, I think. And I would tell stories at parties and people would laugh. And this was 100 years ago, somebody said, well, why don't you try stand-up? There were very few women in stand-up then. It was Robin Williams. Lily Tomlin had been doing it. You see how old I am. David, Late Night David, and Jay Leno. And so I got up and I did what we call an open mic, where anybody could get up for 5 minutes. And amazingly, I did well and people laughed. And I went, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I want to do. So I spent 2 years doing stand-up, and I was a talented beginner, and I worked in LA and New York at good clubs, and even made a pilot with some other comedians. And then it got to the point where it got hard, where you get to that 10,000 hour thing where it's not enough to just be talented. You have to put in the work. And for stand-up comic, that means traveling about 300 days a year, staying at shitty motels, being treated like shit, especially if you were a woman back then, and even if you're a woman right now. And I didn't have the stomach for that. So I said, no, I'm not doing that anymore. And during my day job I worked at a museum, and one of the volunteers at the museum had a friend who was a television writer who was starting a production company with his partner, and he was looking for an assistant. And she said, are you interested in that job? Because I was fun and funny and hardworking in the museum. I worked for the director, and I said no, because I knew that I was going to be rich and famous as a stand-up comic, probably within a month. And then I went home that night and I thought about it and I thought, what the hell are you thinking? And I applied for the job and I got the job, and I moved up from their assistant to the director of development. And it was clear that it was never going to be, their names were Henderson Hirsch. It was never going to be Henderson Hirsch Kirschner. So I launched a campaign to get another job. And I ended up getting a job at CBS network in comedy development.
Excellent.
And I moved up in that job, and they hired me because I was a woman and it was affirmative action and they had to hire a woman. And if they didn't, it was just gonna be another white guy from USC, from, that school. And I moved up, and then I was brought over to Steven Spielberg's first Amblin television department to start that department.
Wow.
Which I did, and I loved. People say the network is the most powerful place to be because people pitch to you, and CBS is a network, and people would pitch to me and kiss your ass and great presents at Christmas and stuff like that. And but when I went to Amblin, that was even more powerful because all you had to say is Stephen would like, and then everything happened. And I did that, and then I worked for 3 international companies as their US development department. And I was in Montreal on a business trip, and I realized that my 2-year-old daughter was being raised by my husband and the nanny. And I thought, because I traveled all the time, and I thought, that's not why I became a mom. So I talked to my husband, and we changed our lifestyle, and I became a consultant instead of an executive. And as a consultant, I created the CBS Diversity Writers Mentoring Program, which I've been running. We're going into year 20 now. And we have helped launch the careers of more than 120 writers of color, television writers of color, and 15 of them are showrunners, which is the highest level you can reach in television. And because of my work with CB, I'm just rambling here. I've told this story so many times. Let me just roll it out. And because of my work at CBS, I was asked, because I developed that program, I was asked to help writer-producer Jeff Melvoin develop the curriculum for the Writers Guild of America showrunner training program. And more than 5, and that was we're going into year 19 on that. In 2024, it'll be year 19. And I've run both programs simultaneously. And CBS, which is now called Paramount, is for emerging brand new writers. And the showrunner training program is for very experienced writers who've sold a television show or are running shows. I wrote a book called Hollywood Game Plan, How to Land a Job in Film, TV, or Digital Entertainment. And that was the hardest thing I ever did because it took me 2 years. I gained 10 pounds and I developed a rash. It was so stressful. And, I'd worked with writers my whole life, and I thought I understood what it meant to be a writer, but it wasn't until I did it that I had a super new appreciation for writers. That's taught in colleges and universities around the US.
Excellent.
And thank you. And I speak internationally on creating your entertainment industry brand, pitching a TV show that sells, getting unstuck. And I'm an entertainment career coach, and I have an online course that I teach, 2 of them. One is called How to Pitch a TV Show That Sells. And the other one, which is coming up in June, is called, forgive my language, Get the Fuck Unstuck and Take Your Entertainment Career to the Next Level. So that's everything I'm doing.
Excellent. I love it all. And in the show notes of this podcast, everyone, you'll be able to find the links to everything that's on offer from Carole, and go and check them out. Enjoy them, that's for sure. But moving back to what you said earlier, firstly, Why was making Mother and Father laugh a home run for you?
Well, that is such a great question, Damon. Nobody ever asked me that. Um, That's such a good question. It just is how my family was. That's how we dealt with problems and
Yeah.
good times and bad times, is you just would make jokes and people would laugh, and then it was much more fun than my parents were not the most upbeat people in the whole wide world. So that was the only time you could get them to have fun,
Yeah.
is if you were laughing. So I guess that answers that. I hope that answers that question.
No, that's fine. It's always interesting to know why laughter happens in a household, because sometimes laughter can be the best form of defense, or sometimes it can be,
Yes,
yeah.
you're right. Was that in your family? Was it like that? You say that as if you know from experience.
Oh no, in my family, we didn't have like it as a best form of defense. It was just a case of we just like to laugh. So
Yeah.
we anything if I had, I don't know, the phase of wearing MC Hammer style trousers, it was just like, okay, we're gonna laugh at you forever, that type of thing. Or if someone made something to eat and it was clearly ridiculous, yeah, they're gonna hear about it. We kind of like the teasing and laughter factor of things. But for what I've seen in other families and from other people, I've always felt that sometimes they would take laughter as the best form of defense. In
Right. Sarcasm sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I felt. But you quickly moved up the ladder, I'm guessing, if you went to do comedy development and then you were part of Steven Spielberg's company, which,
Yeah.
that logo straight away when you mention the name Album Television just springs in my mind, and I'm guessing everybody else's mind. So what was that experience like for you when you first got there as you moved up the ladder?
Great question. Um, well, if I could show you my wall, you would see where I have maybe, no, it's too messy. I can't show you. It was a front page of Variety. Steven Spielberg starts small, small screen division. And working there was like suddenly becoming the most popular girl in school
Yeah.
without having to do anything. Everybody wanted to know you. Everybody wanted to be in business with you. Um, I would go to festivals and people would come up to me and say, "Oh, you work for Steven?" It certainly wasn't me. It was Steven.
Yeah.
And it turns out, interestingly, and I got probably 140 letters, because that's when people were sending letters
Mm.
saying, "Congratulations, and I look forward to working with you." And it turns out that my husband, who I certainly didn't know then, had sent me a letter saying, "Hi, congratulations, I'm Tom Crosswade and I do XYZ and I'd love to work with you." And when we met, he said, "I sent you a letter." And I said, "I have no recollection of it. I'm so sorry." But um, the thing that was and Amblin has this amazing offices that look like a hacienda. There's a kitchen, there's a private chef, there's
Wow.
brownies every
Nice.
afternoon, your lunch is made. Um, I would have set up fancy meetings with the president of networks because they wanted to meet Steven, and we would have these beautiful lunches in the dining room. And he had a movie theater there, and there was a stand with popcorn and candy. And
Nice.
I remember, and I wrote this in the book, my mother didn't think it was a good idea for me to go into a creative endeavor. She always said, "You should be a court reporter, Carole. It's the pay is steady, it's good work." And being the mean woman that I am, I called her from my first day on the job when I was screening Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I said, "Mom, I guess I did okay not being a court reporter." And she had to allow us how that was true.
That's fair. It may be mean, but I can understand your frustration and why you would want to do that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
completely understand that. And the popcorn, I guess, was top notch. It wasn't a cheap, horrible.
No, everything was top notch. Oh, I was going to say, the frustrating part about that job was that the network presidents want to meet him, and the ABC president talked to him, and they compared notes about their private jets. Is that the networks wanted Spielberg's blockbuster movies to turn into television series. And Steven had no interest in turning his blockbusters into TV shows. What he wanted to do was take his lesser titles, like we did a show about Harry and the Hendersons, which was one of the smallest movies he ever made. And that's what we sold as a TV show. So, but we also did Tiny Toons, which was an animated show that was really popular, that wasn't based on any of his movies or anything. It was based on Looney Tunes from Warner Brothers.
I remember them both clearly. I really do. I remember enjoying them both. When you work on a film did you say Raiders of the Lost Ark? I can't remember.
Yes, which I didn't work on.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I just worked on his. I was watching that because he wanted me to watch all of the movies he'd ever made to see which ones would be good TV shows. So I never worked on any of his films.
So in your opinion, when you're watching his films, knowing what the network might want and knowing that he's going to have a clear opinion himself, what would determine what you would think would make a good TV series?
It's something that has a long emotional arc for the characters, and that the story, in 3 acts in a film, beginning, middle, and end, this is where the character starts, this is how the character finishes their journey. In television, that arc can go over 22 episodes, sometimes more, sometimes less, but the story itself has to have the legs to do that. And not all movies do at all. They come to a full stop at the end.
That's true. That's very true. And sometimes, luckily, they come to a full stop. Other times we want more. I think we can both agree on that.
Absolutely.
So you're in a situation where you're working what sounds like to be a dream job at the time, a perfect job. And you mentioned that family concerns made you rethink how you're living your life and your career and what's really more important, which obviously is always going to be a child of yours. How did you...
Yes, not everybody, but me. That was my story. Yeah.
That's fair. Some people see things differently for different reasons. But I think maybe generally it's important to put your children first, especially when they're at a young age. Yes. How did you break the news to the people you work with that you've decided to concentrate on being a mother more than being an industry professional?
You ask great questions. I do lots of podcasts. Nobody asks these questions. Those are great questions.
Thank you so much.
I didn't have to say to anybody, I'm done. When my contract was up and they wanted to renegotiate, I'd say, no, you know what? I'm going to focus on my family. It wasn't like in the middle of a contract, I went, I'm finished.
Oh, I see.
Which would piss people off. And then they want to sue you and stuff like that. So no, when my contract was up, I would just say, you know what? Anyway, so it wasn't a problem. The contract was up and then I said, I'm not re-upping.
That's brilliant. So in a sense, when the contract's up and you renegotiate, you move on to other things, there's always a door open for a possible return in some way because you haven't pissed someone off.
I don't burn. I try not to burn. When I was younger, I burned bridges, but I don't do that anymore. And, Nope, you don't burn bridges so that you can come back for sure.
You mentioned the amount of people that you've helped become showrunners and go further in their career. How many of these people are still working? And what were the first type of things they'd done as showrunners?
Well, people in the CBS program that went on to become showrunners, One was Angela Kang, who does Walking Dead, or did all the Walking Deads.
Excellent.
Akela Cooper, who's now in features doing Megan. I don't know if you're familiar with that horror film.
I want to see that. I want to see it.
Yeah. Aaron Thomas did a show called SWAT. Christina Kim did Supergirl. The prequel to Game of Thrones, Rafe Judkins was one of our alumni. Truth Be Told, which is on Apple, was one of our alumni. Some of these you'll know, certainly, and some not so much. So you asked two questions, and I only answered one because I don't remember what the other question of that was.
Well, you basically answered, because I said, who are they and how have they done? And you've given the names and you've said how they've done, which is incredible. Well, I can't wait to see Megan. I didn't get to catch it in the cinema, but I definitely want to watch that film. And for those of us that are a bit unsure of what a showrunner is, because we hear the term a lot, when you come into being a showrunner for the first time, what's expected of you and what type of results do you think are possible on your first day as a showrunner?
That is such a great question.
Thank you.
I can talk about how you become a showrunner and then talk about what a showrunner does. It used to be the only way you could become a showrunner is if you had already run a show. If you had already moved up on an existing television show and had taken over or were about to take over, then you could go in and pitch an idea. And if they bought the idea, then you would be the showrunner. That has changed so much because original voices from people outside of the business, even we have people in the showrunner program who've never been in a writer's room in television.
Oh.
They came from film or playwriting or the world of comedy. Now to become a showrunner, you could move up, like I just said. You could take over somebody else's show because you've been what we call a strong number two. Forgive me for talking in parlance. You could work with a first-time creator, and people that are just creating their first show need to be put with an experienced showrunner. And the reason why is that when they pick up a television series, on that phone call, when they pick it up, the showrunner has been given $30 to $60 to $80 million in one phone call and been told to produce 8, 10, 22 episodes of a show, get it done within 1 to 2 years, and don't fuck it up. And they're not going to give $60 million to somebody who never did it before. Nobody would do that because that's stupid. But if you create a show, then what you would do is you would be put with an experienced showrunner. But good experienced showrunners don't want to take over your show. They want to support you and your vision. And the network wants your vision. But you would learn management skills from the experienced showrunner. And if you have good leadership ability and you're smart and you're level-headed and you're decisive, then in year 2, you could become the showrunner or co-showrunner.
I see. So that is excellent, that the person that would actually not shadow, sorry, that's the complete wrong word. But the person that would support them in their new role doesn't want to take over. They really want to support. That is excellent. That is real support rather than maybe not
usurping
someone or that's excellent.
Yeah. And I think you asked me, and if you didn't, I'm going to tell you anyways, what do showrunners do? Mm-hmm. They're responsible for everything. In features, the director is the queen or king. Yeah. In television, it's the writer. So the showrunner is responsible first and foremost for turning out the scripts, making sure there's scripts on time, they're good scripts on time. They hire the cast They hire the writing staff. They approve and hire the director, the cinematographer. They approve the production designer, the wardrobe people. They're responsible for the budget. They're responsible for the cast and crew in terms of how that is run, how that set is run. They set the tone for it. They hire the line producer. The buck stops with them.
Excellent. That sounds like a lot of work and a lot of pressure. And I can see why, if someone does it for the first time, no one's going to hand them 60 million to deal with, because that's a huge responsibility that sounds like a lot of pressure, but can be amazing, I guess, when you're in that position.
It is. You get to see your vision on the screen with your name created by on the screen. It's thrilling.
You mentioned earlier that affirmative action played a part in you starting your career as a woman. Why do you think that happened for you? As, for example, why were you the woman chosen to move forward for CBS?
It was comedy development, and I was the only candidate who had been a stand-up comic and had been a director of development. So I got an offer from ABC and CBS. And it was because of that, because of my comedy background, because there weren't very many executives who had that kind of experience.
So if you didn't have that experience, how do you think it would have played out for someone who wanted that role that was a woman? Because earlier you said they had to have a woman. What
They
type
did.
of things would have been needed, not necessarily just for you, but for other women? What could they have looked out for?
Interesting questions. I think they were looking for someone who could get along with dudes. That was a big thing. Like one of the guys, which I was. They were looking for people that had experience. And, you know, in any jobs in the entertainment industry, generally speaking, what it's about is if you have the basic skills, the basic experience, it's whether they like you or not. It's whether they want to spend time with you. That's every single job, just about. And unless you're so big and so powerful and so famous and you're an asshole and they still have to hire you. Normally it's they want to be around you.
That makes sense.
And that was it, I think. Yeah.
So do you think what happened with you regarding affirmative action is the reason why you've started your own programs and your own diversity and writing programs with CBS?
Yeah, it certainly made sense to me. You know, I benefited from it and I believe in it wholeheartedly, and I wanted other people to benefit from it. So, yeah.
Do you think if that never happened to you, you could have gone on to have started this program?
Well, if I hadn't gotten a job, and I'm not, if they didn't need to hire a woman, they wouldn't have hired me. I wouldn't have even been in the candidate pool. They were just looking at dudes. You know what I mean? So if I hadn't gotten that job, I wouldn't have met the people that I met that enabled me to create the program at CBS. So that wouldn't have happened. But if you're saying, would my heart be there?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
That's good. And the one-to-one coaching that you offer to writers, producers, directors, and other creatives in television, film, and related media, why did you start that? And is that a passion of yours that you think will last forever? And who are some of the people that have been involved in those one-to-one sessions, if you can name them?
Sure. Yes, it is certainly a passion of mine. I love doing my programs. I love doing my speaking. I love doing my online courses. It means a lot to me to help people, but I love one-on-one contact, getting to know people more. Probably wanted to be a therapist and a previous life, although we don't really do therapy, although there's always a little bit of therapy in there because it's career coaching. So yeah, it feeds my soul, and I suspect I will always do that. As long as somebody wants to hire me for that and I can help them, I will do that. And the showrunner for Pen 15 is a client of mine. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that show, Pen 15, sort of a cult hit in the US. There was a show called Gordita Chronicles, and she's a client of mine. There are Canadian directors who do episodic directing in Canada that are clients of mine. A lot of emerging writers, a lot of writers who are currently on shows, directors who want to take their career to the next level and aren't quite certain how to do that. And we work on that together.
Oh, that's good. That sounds excellent, that you work on them together and you like to speak to people one-to-one, because I think a lot of
Yes.
the things we're seeing online now are kind of online workshops where nothing wrong with that or anything, but we're seeing more of a kind of group activity in terms of learning, and the one-to-one sessions are powerful and communicate in a different way and resonate maybe long-term in a different way than a whole group discussion, in my
Totally
opinion.
agree. I do both.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of value in the group. And it isn't just because I do it, although it's primarily because I do it, but you can reach more people with the information. One-on-one, I have a finite amount of time. There's only a certain number of hours in a day to work with people, but it's deeper work. It's often more emotional, isn't the right term. It's deeper work, and I love that.
The Hollywood boot camp.
Yes.
Landing a job in TV is a difficult one, that's for sure. So when someone comes into a Hollywood boot camp or thinks about it or has discussions about it with you, do you have to kind of measure their expectations, or is it a case of you can let people be aware that there may be heights they're not going to hit, or are you able to show them you can hit the heights you want in this Hollywood boot camp?
Well, the Hollywood boot camp is an online recorded course, so I don't have one-to-one contact with them.
Okay.
It teaches them the skills that they need to break in and get their first job or their second job. I tell people what it takes to be successful. And I've worked with hundreds of people, and I could tell the difference between who's going to make it and who's not probably within 5 minutes.
Wow.
And sometimes I'm wrong, not always right, but 90% of the time I'm right. And so I think when people are taking that course or reading my book, they have to self-select to say, am I willing to do this? Am I willing to do that? Am I willing to do this? Because if you are willing to do all those things and you have luck and timing, and we were talking about, I say luck is where opportunity and preparation sort of collide. And if you're prepared for that luck, but sometimes you don't get lucky. And that's perseverance then. But not everybody does. I mean, the truth is not everybody is going to break through. Even people that are doing all the right things, very rarely do they not break through. And if they have the talent, almost never do they not break through. But it happens occasionally. It happens rarely, because the town is looking for talented people with fresh ideas and a great work ethic and a pleasure to be around and talent and creativity. So if you have that, you'll make it. And I can only say 99% of the time, because there's always an exception to every rule.
Yeah. So what are some of the telltale signs for you when you speak to someone in these situations where you can think to yourself, okay, this person's not going to make it, or this person is going to make it? What are some people
Right.
doing wrong, and what are some people doing right?
Well, what people are doing right is they have a great attitude. They're not whining or complaining. That's what not to do.
Mm.
They're upbeat. They're somebody you want to be around. They're a student of the business, so they have thought deeply about different things about the business. So when they talk about it, regardless of how old they are, you think, wow, this is somebody who's really taken a deep dive and invested in this career. They're willing to take direction and do whatever it is that needs to be done. They're people who know a lot of people and are always meeting new people. And are they smart? Are they willing to do what other people aren't willing to do? Will they work harder? Will
Yeah.
they come in earlier? Will they stay later? Will they do what it takes to learn? Will they make somebody's life easier for whom they work? You can get that within 5 minutes. What not to do is, and they know themselves, you know, in on my website, there's something called Tell Your Story in 60 Seconds. And it's a ebook for how you learn how to talk about yourself. They know how to talk about themselves, the people that succeed. The people that don't are kind of wishy-washy. They can't tell you what they've done. They don't seem very motivated. They're not particularly thoughtful. They don't want to work that hard. They don't research me before they meet me.
Oh, wow.
Smart people will research you before they meet you. And now there's Google. There's everything you'd ever need or want
Mm.
to know about somebody before you meet them. And when I meet somebody who tells me, yes, I watched this podcast, I listened to this, I know that you said XYZ, I think, okay, that person's sharp.
Previously, as we said, you're a stand-up comedian. You started as a stand-up comedian,
Right.
and then you moved on and done other things with your career. What drew you to performance and creativity and writing and everything else? What exactly brought you to the table?
I did not want to be an insurance salesman. I wanted to do something that was fun. I wanted to do something that was creative. Actually, I got a job right out of high school, where I was a file clerk. Who even knows if they're still file clerks? And I lasted 4 days and didn't come in on Friday because I said I have to go to the zoo.
Oh,
I always knew that I didn't want a 9 to 5 job. I'd rather work all day into the night or 7 days a week than work a 9 to 5. And everybody who's on your show, I'm sure, talks about wanting to tell stories. And to me, stories, I used to just eat them up.
yeah.
I just loved stories. So anything I could do to be involved in that was great.
Stories matter, they do, especially for what you do and what you said. And also, earlier, you mentioned before that being a mother was important to you, and
Yeah,
it was more important than your career at the time. Right
right.
now, what does a work-life balance look like for you?
Really good question. I have none. Very little, because I do so many different things. And I want to tell you that child is a young woman now
Yeah.
who's going to be 27, and she
Wow.
is an
Okay.
aspiring comedy writer. So she works in television. I
Excellent.
didn't help her get her jobs, and she was always pissed off. I said, I'm her career coach. She's got that, but she has to she has to make her own way. And she's done a spectacular job of that. Work-life balance. Here's what I like to do. It isn't that I do it. I like to stop looking at work, at emails at 6:30. Don't always manage that, 6:30 at night.
Yeah.
I try not to work on the weekends unless I have events or something that I have to do. I try and take 3 weeks off in December. I try and take
Excellent.
a week to 10 days off in the summer. I try and go on vacations with my family. I go away by myself on sort of retreats, personal
Oh,
retreats.
by yourself.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, because I love that. I go hiking, I get massages, I do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not very often, maybe twice a year, but maybe once a year, let's be honest. But it's important to me to recharge.
So you certainly do look after yourself. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. That is
Thank you.
good.
Yes, I do. I'm selfish. So,
No, it's not selfish. It's healthy. It's mental health. It's physical health. It's everything. And you said you didn't help your daughter in any way whatsoever for her to get her job. But
well, let me just say, I made the introduction to her to get her first internship. One of my mentees said, "Oh, I have a friend at Funny or Die who's looking for a PA." So I put them together. This CBS writer interviewed Sarah and passed along her resume to her friend who ran Funny or Die or was hiring for that. And from there, Sarah got every other one of her jobs by herself.
oh, okay. So I see. So there was a kind of introduction and through that
Absolutely.
way.
I didn't just go find something. I helped her with the first gig. And after that, if she was up for a job with people I knew, I'd say nice things about her because they were true. But I never got her a job, you know?
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So I thought you may have went full blown like face to the hand, whatever, you go and do your thing, but you did help
Yeah.
in a constructive, measured way, which is always
Yeah.
nice. From
I'm not a monster.
no, no.
I'm just straight. I'm
That's fair.
just tough.
Tough.
Yeah.
Tough love. Good love, tough love. And the
Yeah.
CBS Diversity Writers Program and the WGA Showrunner Training Program, they're both still going strong and they're great.
Yeah.
Diversity, I think it's fair to say, has come quite a long way within the
Thank
industry.
God. Thank God. Not far enough,
No?
but so much farther than when I started. So much farther.
And how do you see things in the next 20 years moving?
20 years. It's going to change so much in 20 years. What I'll say is I fear there will be a backward step to all, in some ways, to all the progress we've made in terms of underrepresented people having opportunities. Now, because there's people from underrepresented communities who are now showrunners, I'm talking about television, they are running shows, they are hiring people, they're in demand, they're going to be working. But things tend to be cyclical. And while I think that there's been so much progress, that it may not be going at the pace that it is now, and then it'll come around again, I think.
Oh, okay. That's interesting to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there are people of color, people in underrepresented communities who are entrenched now that are going to keep it going. One of the people from the showrunner training program, he has 4 shows on the air. Courtney Kemp has 3 shows on the air. They're not going anywhere soon.
Yeah.
And they're hiring people, they're bringing people into their rooms and moving them up. So those people will be creating shows.
Excellent. So you're doing so much work. We really appreciate and love all that you've done. But is there anything
Thank
you've
you.
got upcoming that you can tell us about?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. Little shameless plug here. I have a course, an online course called Get the Fuck Unstuck and Take Your Entertainment Career to the Next Level. And there's 10 steps to what you need to do to get unstuck. And we go through it in 4 weeks. And you can find out about that by going to my website, carolekirschner.com, signing up for my mailing list. And on each page on the website, I think it says stay in touch or something like that. And then you'll get all the information about it. It starts in June.
Excellent. And when anyone wants to find you online, where can they find you? Where's the best place to hit you up for a question or anything?
Sure. You can reach me at Carole, Carole, Kirschner, KIRSCHNER.com. That's my website. And if you want to reach out to me, if you have a question, you can reach out to me at Carole, Carole, at CaroleKirschner.com.
Excellent. And Carole, thanks so much for coming on and answering my questions and everything. I've learned a lot. The listeners have learned a lot, and it's been brilliant speaking to you. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I love your questions. Those are great questions.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Have you thought of upgrading your cinematography game? Would you like to have an ASC cinematographer mentor you for free? Join veteran cinematographer Suki Medenzovic, ASC, Disney, Pixar, FX Networks, Netflix, American Horror Story. As he teaches you how to create beautiful images using 3 lighting techniques he has mastered on film sets over his 30-plus years in the film industry. Each technique uses basic, low-cost lighting equipment so that anyone can achieve beautiful visuals no matter your project's budget. If you want to take your cinematography to the next level, visit filmmakingconversations.com to sign up for instant access. If you like this podcast, share it with friends, leave a comment in the comments section, and hit the subscribe button.